Just before we start, so my name's Elliott, I'm the VP of Media for Conversant. What I'm actually going to talk about is personalisation of media. So how do you personalise across a website and then off-site? Like how do you do that to an audience, and what are the trends that we see about that? If there's any questions, I'm going to hang around at the end and I'm happy to answer absolutely anything. And if you can't get hold of me, then ask Amelie or James, and they'll also can talk to you about anything you'd like to. So, why am I here and why do I have an opinion? So, Conversant is a part of the Epsilon group. Epsilon is rated by Gartner #1 for personalisation globally for the last few years. It's a part of the Alliance Data Systems Group, and the global revenue is $6 billion, and all of that money is targeted towards personalisation of media, personalisation of sites, and identification of individuals. We work with about 20% of the global IR 500, and we've been doing it for about 9 years. So we've actually been doing this for a really long time. One of the takeaways from this I'd like you to get is it is possible to personalise properly across site and also in digital media. And I think that's something that we're hearing a lot at the moment, is that people are testing personalisation and then failing. So, the power of personalisation. The way it's structured is there's a piece on the market as I see it now, where I think the market is. Then there's a piece on kind of trends within the market and where I think it's going. And then there's a piece on the end, which is a case study for one of our larger clients. So, this is probably everyone's experience of personalisation. The interesting things is the first article about personalisation was written in 2001. That's when they were handing out CDs to get on the internet. It does say personalisation, no thanks. It was written on April Fool's Day. I hope that means something. What's interesting about it is how long people have been talking about it and how frustrated people are obviously about it. So there's massive hype around it. It's obvious that there's a real need. Everybody knows that integrated marketing works. Everybody knows that omni-channel marketing works, but people want to be able to personalise across all of those channels. And it's frustrating that it's not really been possible to do it very well up to now. When we're talking to brands, these are the sorts of questions that they ask us, or this comes up a lot for us. So, what does personalisation mean for their business? So, is it transformative? Is it an efficiency thing? Like, what is it going to actually add to mine? Do I need to do it because it's really hard work? The data that they've got in their business, can they personalise with the data in their business? Is it enough just to change the product set on your site based on what people looked at yesterday? Does that matter? Does it do anything? What's the right consumer experience? Should you put "Hello Elliott" on your website when someone comes to it? Should somebody know that you're personalising your integrations with them when you're talking to them in digital media? If people don't know you're personalising, does it have an effect? How do you actually test personalisation? How do you measure whether personalisation is actually working or not? Like, how do you know whether it's worth the investment or not? And then finally, which is very important, what's going to happen with privacy? So I'm only going to touch on that at the end because it's really, really complicated and a little bit boring. But privacy is really important because you're using PII data, which means personally identifiable information, so names and addresses. And if you're using PII data, the law about your consent is just about to change, and a lot of that data is not going to be usable anymore. So how does that affect personalisation? So there's a lot of stress around it. It obviously makes logical sense. So people want to do it. So why isn't everybody just jumping into it, or where is everybody now? So this is a white paper we did in the US towards the end of last year. It was a survey of about 1,000 senior executives with business revenues of around 500 million to $1 billion. So these are companies that really know what they're doing and have large marketing teams. The important thing is 40% of those businesses believe that they have a single customer view, right? You can't personalize, you can't do one-to-one marketing unless you've got a single view of a customer, right? Now, to do that properly, from my point of view, to do a premium level one-to-one marketing over time, you need to be able to integrate all of the different data points underneath. So you need to be able to integrate traditional CPM. 59% of those companies do that. You also need to be able to integrate channel data, so people using your mobile app, people using your website at the same time. You also need to be able to integrate external data, and that's things like demographic data, so age, male or female. So male or female obviously has a massive effect on retail performance. Historical purchases. So you need to know how that person's integrated with you. Really good point here. How far back is enough historical purchases to personalise with? So I'd say you need about 2 years. So, like, are you doing that as well? Non-personally identifiable data. Now that's what we do, and that's what we're really good at. Is on your site you might be using personally identifiable data, but everything in digital uses anonymous data, and there's masses and masses of really interesting behavioural data that can affect how you interact with somebody on your own site. So are you integrating what your consumers are doing off your site when they come to your site with how you talk to them on the site? And then lastly, and the omni-channel piece is, are you also integrating what's happening offline into your online? Are you integrating your media activity online to affect what's going on offline or not? Now, when we actually went through all of that and kind of retro-engineered all of their processes, 12% of them had actually managed to do that. So that explains why there's a lot of frustration. People think they're buying something, and then that's not quite what they're getting to at the end. Now, from my point of view, the way you know that you're personalising properly, okay? We're all people, we're not computers, we're not devices. 80% of our life is conducted not online, right? So if I can show somebody an ad online and track it all the way through to an offline conversion, that's a personalised interaction. That's a real personalised interaction. And then the number of people that can actually do that goes down to 6%. So there's a real difference between expectation and what people want and what they're actually doing now. Now, our company does do that. That's what it does. It takes you all the way through that journey from an online ad. I could literally show someone an online ad on the 1st of January and tell you if they converted on the 25th of December in a store in the same year. Now, there's a lot of confusion when people talk about personalisation, and the reason is, from my point of view, is that there's 2 types of personalisation. Now, what this is, I don't know if everyone's seen it, it's called the Gartner hype cycle. And at the beginning, there's an innovation trigger. Then there's the peak of inflated expectations, which we've all had dealing with ad tech. The trough of disillusionment. Then when it starts to work, the slope of enlightenment, and then the kind of plateau of productivity where everybody's using it. Now, personalisation, the yellow bit, when people are talking about it generally, and certainly here at this event, what they mean is site personalisation. And what they mean is taking PII data from a customer's existing CRM and using it to affect that client's interactions with their own customers on their site, okay? Now, people know how to do that, and there's a lot of good companies here doing it. The problem with it is it's not scaled. So when you're talking to your own customers and you're personalising, what you actually are doing, you're creating efficiency. You're not creating net new opportunity to talk to your own customers. So there's a level of disappointment around it because it's hard to do, and then the returns are not actually what you expect at the end because you're still talking to your own customers, although perhaps slightly better than you were previously. The sort of businesses that are in that area would be an IBM or an Oracle or somebody like that. The second part of it, which I think is more interesting and there's more opportunity in it, is personification. Now, what that actually means is taking CRM data, anonymizing it and activating it for use in anonymous environments. And by that I mean taking CRM data, anonymizing it, and being able to run media campaigns in digital across apps, across mobile, and measuring what the effect of that is back to the site. Now, that's got masses and masses of scale in it for businesses. So that means that I can show you an ad online, and then I can see whether you can convert offline. At the moment, nobody can do that. So you run an online ad, you measure it against 20% of your conversions, which are online, and then you ignore the fact that online is driving offline sales, but 80% of your sales are offline. So if you could match that up, there's a huge opportunity to talk to your customers better, and a huge opportunity to maximise the scale. Now, the sort of one of the trends for that is everybody is trying to create audience maps. They're trying to create their own single customer view across devices that other brands can kind of access. So examples of that would be Verizon buying AOL, a tech company with lots and lots of data buying a media company. They're trying to match users across that. Another example of that would be Dentsu Aegis, which is a really large agency holding group, buying Merkle, which is a data processor. They're trying to get to a stage where they can join CRM data to online. So there's a lot of that going on at the moment. The three trends that I think are actually happening, or the three things that can come out of that, or the three real benefits that I don't think anybody else is going to talk about at this event, but I think this is the new stuff that everyone's going to get really interested in. The first one is identification. So brands will be able to speak to their customers and prospects as individuals, not as cookies, not as devices, not as segments, all right? If anyone says they're personalising and then starts talking to you about segments, this piece here is a micro segment. Everyone's 18 to 35, everyone's ABC1. You're all completely and utterly different. That's not one-to-one marketing. One-to-one is me coming around and asking you at the beginning, what do you want me to talk about, and then trying to talk to you about it. Media personalisation. So if a brand knows who someone is and can remember who they are, they can now talk to that person all the time and have a genuine dialogue with them. Now, what that means is that's the difference between me knowing you sort of, and every time I meet you saying, hi, what's your name again? Hi, what's your name again? Hi, what's your name again? Except for it's worse than that, because I'm going, hi, what's your name again? Can I have a fiver? Hi, what's your name again? Can I have a fiver? Hi, what's your name again? Can I have a fiver? Whereas personalisation is, hi, what's your name? I'm Elliott. Hi, what's your interest in personalisation? Hi, okay, let me try and do that. So, and remembering, and the more obscure it is, if you think about your own interactions with people, the more obscure the information that someone can remember about you, and for the longer time they can remember it, the more impactful for you it is, okay? The most charismatic people you meet remember your name and then remember the last thing they talked to you about. The next thing that's going to change, and this is really good, and this is really good for the whole industry, is measurement. So currently, the way people talk about media spend is return on ad spend. So for that example, you send out a load of emails, loads of people click on the email, you generate £1,000, right? That return on ad spend, 1,000 to 1 for the email. But the problem is, those customers are already your customers. Some of them are already very good customers. You've not deduped your own brand value. You've not deduped the marketing mix from all of the other things you're doing at the same time. So you're not actually measuring what was the impact, the incremental impact of that thing that you did then. Now, the reason you can do that is because when you personalise, it implies you can choose not to personalise, which means that you can create holdout groups, which means you can do test and control in media, which I'm going to come back to in a minute. So, identification. This is basically where we are now. Someone visits the site, you've got a rough idea of their age, you know what they've looked at, and you end up showing them things that they've looked at on site. The problem is that it's not a lot of data to personalise a conversation. You're not remembering obscure things about people. You're not trying to address them as a person and trying to engage with them. You need to be able to take offline data because there's more of it. You need to be able to combine that with online data. You need to combine that with whether somebody likes horror films or whether somebody likes to walk, whether somebody's got a family or not. And that allows you to personalise creative properly. The second piece about personalisation, so this, even when people are talking about personalisation at the moment that I've seen in this fair, they're talking about this. So they're talking about creating brand value above the line, creating brand value with TV, creating brand value with out of home, creating brand equity, right? Now, a marketing basic is you build brand equity and you never ever extract brand equity from your brand. You never damage your brand, all right? So Nike is a swoosh. They own no factories. They own nothing else. They would never, ever do anything to damage their brand, right? But we've forgotten that in digital. So in digital, what we've done instead is we take every opportunity to just smash products into people's faces. Hi, mate, can I have a fiver? Hi, mate, can I have a fiver? Hi, mate, can I have a fiver? Over and over again. So we basically extract value in digital that we create elsewhere. That's breaking a basic marketing truism. It's wrong, okay? This is what personalisation looks like, okay? If you can remember who somebody is and you have a dialogue with someone, yes, you should put promotional offers in, but people want to know that you appreciate them. They want to know you've got a relationship. They want to know that you want them in your VIP plan. Now, it's very hard to measure brand equity currently, and brand equity is a value of lifetime value and increasing incremental return over time. Now, the reason that we don't market like this currently, the reason why everyone's talking about emailing product offers and things like that here and not talking about branding is it's hard to measure brand equity. But companies that grow really fast have very high brand equity. So if there's a way to measure growing brand equity, you would do it and you would do more of this. So personalisation is going to make this possible because you'll be able to remember what somebody did over time. And this is how we do our advertising. Sorry, I'll just say that the other good thing about that is that looks good, that looks cool, and that makes the internet look good, and that stops people doing ad blockers and stuff like that, and that stops just making the internet somewhere that nobody wants to go, and it keeps the internet open because people are happy to have advertising on publishers' sites. Now, the last piece is measurement. So marketers will be able to accurately measure the incremental return on ad spend. So if I didn't do this, I wouldn't have got the return that I did, and identify sales that otherwise wouldn't have occurred. So I'm guessing quite a lot of you know about test and control anyway, but just to explain it, it's a bit like in the pharmacy industry where they give everybody a pill, they give some people a placebo, they don't know who they've given the placebo to, and when they get the results back of who's well and who's not well, the difference in performance is the incremental lift. It's that 17% number there, okay? Now, if I take that back to media or e-commerce, the equivalent would be if there's one person in the control group on the left and there's one person on the test group on the right, and the guy in the test group or the girl in the test group on the right receives personalised messaging, all right? The control group sees normal display, they see print, they see retail, they see email, they see affiliate. The person in the test group sees exactly the same thing. They see display, print, retail, email, affiliate. The only difference is they see a personalised ad and the other person doesn't. Now, if you're measuring person first, if you're measuring omni-channel, if you're working out of somebody's CRM folder, it doesn't matter whether that conversion happens in online or in a store or over the phone or via a catalogue, because you'll capture the person's activity and where they went back to. So it doesn't matter whether you're trying to measure in-app on a mobile phone, because you can measure it everywhere, right? It's amazing for groceries, something like this, because you're actually measuring genuine return back for your customers. Now, why does that matter? That really matters because it puts marketing at the centre of the business. Because if you know what your exact return is, marketing then becomes an investment decision, not a budgetary decision. And then you spend as much as you can to generate more scale. And it's pretty much a fact that all businesses are underinvested in marketing, primarily because the financial director doesn't believe in the marketers and what they're saying. All right? So I've put this quote up here because this is the owner of a company called Quantcast. Quantcast is an absolute brilliant digital business. It doesn't do person-first media. It can't create holdout groups. And it's important what he's saying. He's saying marketers care about incremental outcomes, sales and brand metrics. At the campaign level, A/B tests can assess incrementality. Brilliant, should do it. But cost and complexity preclude them as a general solution for every campaign. Not anymore, not if you're personalising. You should have incremental measurement on all the time because seasonality affects incrementality. You can't do it once and forget about it. If you're doing massive TV campaigns, it affects it. So you have to have it all the time. And it is now possible to always run these incremental tests. Now, talking about GDPR for personalisation. So I'm not a lawyer. Anything I say doesn't count now, okay? But GDPR, if you're using PII data, personal identifiable data, to affect how your site's operating, what GDPR is going to say is you're going to need certain permissions to be able to do that because you're using something that's identifiable about someone. That means that a lot of your existing CRM file is going to just disappear in about a year, 2 years' time. The difference with what I'm talking about and personalising in anonymous environments is you can take the PII data, give it to a third party to hash it and make it anonymous. They give me an ID that now matches to lots of other anonymous IDs I can run. So it's a pseudonymous profile. Don't say that quickly when you're drunk. And that allows me to market to people in anonymous environments. So actually, there's already allowance to do that in GDPR. So actually, GDPR isn't going to affect personalisation. Last one. So this is a case study for one of our large clients. This is a top 20 global IR brand. Okay, it's a massive global company with online and offline, and these are the results. This isn't a case study. This is something we produced for them, an executive summary for them. So these numbers are the same numbers that they've got in their business, right? ROAS 8.6 to 1. That's not ROAS, that's incremental return on ad spend. If you hadn't done what I did, you wouldn't have got this back. If you gave me £1, every time you gave me £1, I gave you £8.60. Like, why wouldn't you do that? It's incredible that you can actually measure like that. The other things that are interesting to look on there, so the beige dots are the client data that gets put in and how that works. So in that instance, there's email data, customer profile information, which is typically something like loyalty cards, a 13-month rolling site profile, so the usual stuff you do, like who's viewed, who's clicked on what, and then what's called here a mega brand buyer file, but it's a 2-year historical customer file. That's the PII data that they put in. Now, the non-PII data that we put in to make that activate is network publisher activity. So 80 billion interactions daily. That's what videos you watch on YouTube. That's what you click on. It's what you look at on websites. Network transactions. So from other businesses across our network, we also look at 75 million transactions, and we apply that to what the brand knows about their own customers and what they're buying. Demographic data, so age, income, gender. Lifestyle attributes, so it says here, I am beautiful, I'm athletic, but perhaps your grandparents, or perhaps you are in a couple and you actually really love the other person in the couple and you buy a lot of presents for them. Geolocation, so where actually somebody is or not, whether you're near a store, whether you want to advertise to someone who shops in store and tell them that there's a new offer in store. So all of those numbers are incremental returns. So the point that's important, we're marketing to people. People don't just operate online, they go offline and online. So we generated incremental revenue, $17 million in store, $10 million online, to $27 million overall in 2015 when people weren't really personalising very well. Okay, now what that means is that impact, I don't care how big a company you are, that impacts your top line. And that puts the marketer at the top of the business because you're growing the overall business by 3 or 4%. You're not growing the 10% of online sales by 5%, which then turns into 0%. It's a significant way of improving marketing generally for everybody. So when we go back to this, what does personalisation mean for the business? If you do it properly, it's transformative. Current data that they have, can they use it? Yes. What's the right consumer experience? It's focused on brand engagement and lifetime value. How do you test and trial personalisation? How do you measure it? You measure it through test and control, so you see what your actual returns are, and it was privacy compliant. Okay? If anyone's got any questions, I know no one's going to ask me now. I'll be over there. Thank you.